Good afternoon and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. I hope the week's gone well. We've been hit with some rain. Apparently it's the weather system called the Indian Ocean Dipole. And looking at some tweets I received, the coast really looks very, very flooded indeed. Macro thoughts, well, it's all about sterling, make or break, tweeted Nicoletos, and we're currently at 128.73. We got as high as 129.90. But I tend to think now that all the news is in the price, but I thought that a point or two ago. Let's see how things develop from here, and how Boris fares tomorrow in the UK Parliament, which remains frankly unputdownable. Home thoughts, Sirikoi Lodge was crowned the top resort in the world by Condé Nast readers. Best resort in the world, Condé Nast Readers' Choice Awards. Why Sirikoi, tucked away in the Lewa Conservancy in Kopje County, intimate, hand-created and family-owned resort, main lodge, a 3-bedroom house, 2 and 4 bedroom tents facing a watering hole. Has bagged several awards before, both at home and abroad. And it was founded by the late Willie Roberts, who was a visionary and perfectionist with an absolute passion and connection to wildlife, the wilderness and the communities of Kenya. I interviewed Willie Roberts a while ago, and it's an extraordinary interview. His family was brought up in one of the most remote parts of Kenya, Lake Baringo, and he described his journey from Lake Baringo as a young boy. He spent days in the Kakamega forest when he ran away from school. You've got to listen to that interview. It was such a pleasure. Sadly, he passed away. This is a photograph I took when I was in Lewa, when I was visiting Sirikoi, and it made me think of Kerouac. Nothing behind me, everything ahead of me as is ever on the road. We flew with tropic air from Sirikoi to Ololokwe. This gives you a great feel of the landscape from the height of a helicopter. This is the view from the top of Ololokwe mountain. Do watch the footage which was specifically about Sirikoi, and it really is a remarkable place and I can't recommend it enough. I don't want realism, I want magic. Yes, magic. I try to give that to people. I misrepresent things to them. I don't tell the truth. I tell what ought to be the truth. And if that's sinful, then let me be damned for it. A streetcar named Desire, Tennessee Williams, Blanche Dubois. All cruel people describe themselves as paragons of frankness, said Tennessee Williams. We're all sentenced to solitary confinement inside our skins for life. I can't stand a naked light bulb any more than I can a rude remark or a vulgar action. They told me to take a streetcar named Desire and then transfer to one called Cemeteries and ride 6 blocks and get off at Elysian Fields. It's a fantastic play, and if you can watch the original with Marlon Brando and Vivian Lee, you should. Political reflections, this was the photograph that was posted of Vice President Pence and President Erdogan by Benjamin Harvey, and it kind of summed it all up, I suppose. The Syrian Arab army troops have entered Kobani after a deal was struck by the SDF and Bashar al-Assad. The issue is the deal that the Americans have done with the Turks ahead of Erdogan's visit to Putin, and it seems that they've conceded ground and allowed Turkey to remain with this sort of buffer zone within Syria. But let's see, it's a fast-moving and fluid situation. And I remain of the view of that article I was describing, which was, the pivot to Asia, the need to dial down the Middle Eastern insertion by the Americans, and hence the desire to accommodate Erdogan and to disaccommodate the Kurds. 1 million people are jailed at China's Gulags. I managed to escape. Here's what is really going on inside. There's an article in Haaretz which is truly frightening. 20 prisoners live in one small room. They are handcuffed, their heads shaved. Every move is monitored by ceiling cameras. A bucket in the corner of the room is their toilet. The daily routine begins at 6 a.m. Torture, metal nails, fingers pulled out, electric shocks take place in the black room. Punishment is a constant. The prisoners are forced to take pills and get injections. It's for disease prevention, the staff tell them, but in reality they are the human subjects of medical experiments. Regimes struggle against what it terms the three evils: terrorism, separatism, and extremism. At the end of 2016, the police began arresting people at night secretly. It was a socially and politically uncertain period. Cameras appeared in every public space. The security forces stepped up their presence. At one stage, DNA samples were taken from all members of minorities in the region, and our telephone SIM cards were taken from us. One day, we were invited to a meeting of senior civil servants. There were perhaps 180 people there, employees in hospitals and schools. Police officers reading from a document announced that re-education centres for the population were going to open soon in order to stabilize the situation in the region. In January 2017, they started to take people who had relatives abroad. The turning point came in late 2017. In November 2017, I was ordered to report to an address in the city's suburbs, to leave a message at a phone number I had been given and wait for the police. After Sauytbay arrived at the designated place and left the message, 4 armed men in uniform arrived, again covered her head and bundled her into a vehicle. The document stated it was forbidden to speak with the prisoners, forbidden to laugh, forbidden to cry, and forbidden to answer questions from anyone. I signed because I had no choice, and then I received a uniform and was taken to a tiny bedroom with a concrete bed and a thin plastic mattress. There were 5 cameras on the ceiling, 1 in each corner and another one in the middle. Other inmates, those who weren't burdened with teaching duties, endured more stringent conditions. There were almost 20 people in a room of 16 square meters. There were cameras in their rooms too, and also in the corridor. Each room had a plastic bucket for a toilet. Every prisoner was given 2 minutes a day to use the toilet, and the bucket was emptied only once a day. If it filled up, you had to wait until the next day. The prisoners wore uniforms and their heads were shaved. Their hands and feet were shackled all day, except when they had to write. Even in sleep they were shackled, and they were required to sleep on their right side. Anyone who turned over was punished. I love China. Thank you to the Communist Party. I am Chinese. I love Xi Jinping. The afternoon and evening hours were devoted to confessions of crimes and moral offences. Between 4 and 6 p.m. the pupils had to think about their sins. Almost everything could be considered a sin, from observing religious practices and not knowing the Chinese language or culture to immoral behavior Inmates who did not think of sins that were severe enough or didn't make up something were punished. There were 3 meals a day. All the meals included watery rice soup or vegetable soup and a small slice of Chinese bread. Meat was served on Fridays, but it was pork. I don't think they'll be getting pork now because the price has doubled. The inmates were compelled to eat it, even if they were religiously observant and did not eat pork. Refusal brought punishment. The result of it all was that the inmates turned into bodies without a soul. The camp's commanders set aside a room for torture, which the inmates dubbed the Black Room because it was forbidden to talk about it explicitly. She witnessed medical procedures being carried out on inmates with no justification. She thinks it was done as part of human experiments that were carried out in the camp systematically. The inmates would be given pills or injections. They were told it was to prevent diseases, but the nurses told me secretly that the pills were dangerous and I should not take them. On an everyday basis, the policemen took the pretty girls with them and they didn't come back to the rooms all night. The police had unlimited power. They could take whoever they wanted. There were also cases of gang rape. They were stopping cars at every corner, checking our phones, coming into our homes to count the number of people inside, people getting detained for having photos of Turkish movie stars on their phones, new mothers separated from their babies and forced to work in factories like slaves. Later in her testimony, she added that children were being interrogated at school about whether their parents prayed and that there were prohibitions on head coverings and possessing a Quran. Xinjiang became part of the People's Republic of China in 1949 and received an autonomous status. A large part of this investment is managed by the governmental military enterprise called Bingtuan, whose activity, together with various economic and political measures taken by the central government, created resentment among the local population. Children are being taken from their parents or confined in concentration camps and being put in Chinese orphanages. Women in the camps are receiving inoculations that make them infertile. The Chinese are entering into private homes and eradicating local culture, and there is widespread collective punishment. 5th of March 2018, I wrote an article, China has unveiled a digital panopticon in Xinjiang. Dissent is measured and snuffed out very quickly in China. China has unveiled a digital panopticon in Xinjiang, where a combination of data from video surveillance, face and license plate recognition, mobile device locations and official records to identify targets for detention. Xinjiang is surely a precursor for how the CCCP will manage dissent. The actions in Xinjiang are part of the regional authorities' ongoing Strike Hard campaign and President Xi's stability maintenance and enduring peace drive in the region. In my latest article, which I wrote on the occasion of the 70th anniversary, I said Xi is building an algorithmic society, has in fact replaced Jesus in the churches and Muhammad in the mosques. Unity is iron and steel. Unity is a source of strength. Complete reunification of the motherland is an inevitable trend. No one and no force can ever stop it, he added. I am sure Xi sees Hong Kong and Taiwan like a virus, and Xinjiang as well, and he is looking to impose a quarantine just like he has imposed on Xinjiang. The Chinese dream has become a nightmare at the boundaries of the Han Empire. Interesting article in CFR, China's Digital Silk Road Strategic Technological Competition and Exporting Political Illiberalism. And this is about the Digital Silk Road and how this model is now being exported all over the world. Now let's move on to inside the derailed White House meeting. I hate ISIS more than you do, President Trump said. You don't know that, Speaker Nancy Pelosi replied. The White House and Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, the minority leader, said Mr. Trump actually called Ms. Pelosi third rate. They said you wanted this meeting, Trump told the congressional leaders. I didn't want this meeting, but I'm doing it, he said. Of Mr. Mattis, world's most overrated general. You know why? He wasn't tough enough. I captured ISIS. Mattis said it would take 2 years. I captured them in 1 month. At another point, Trump told Pelosi that he cared more about defeating terrorism than she did. So pretty extraordinary. Pelosi used meltdown to describe Mr. Trump's behavior, and he used unhinged meltdown as a way to describe hers. So pretty extraordinary stuff, but then we've been normalized with all this extraordinary stuff. There is definite hanky-panky going on. The fantastically profitable mystery of the Trump chaos trades is an article in Vanity Fair. Last 10 minutes of trading at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange on Friday, September 13, someone got very lucky. That's when he or she or a group of people sold short 120,000 S&P E-minis when the index was trading around 3,010. It was nearing midnight in Tehran. A few hours later, drones attacked a large swathe of Saudi Arabia's oil infrastructure, choking off production, sending oil prices soaring. By the time the CME next opened, on Sunday night, the S&P had fallen 30 points, giving that very fortunate trader or traders a quick $180 million profit. And they're citing a number of other transactions, particularly around the China-US trade war and comments made by Trump around those. Traders in the Chicago pits have been watching these kinds of wagers with an increasing mixture of shock and awe since the start of the Trump presidency. They are used to rapid fluctuations in the S&P 500 index. Volatility is common, of course, but the precision and timing of these trades and the vast amount of money being made as a result of them make the traders wonder if all of this is on the level. Are the people behind these trades incredibly lucky, or do they have access to information that other people don't have about, say, Trump or Beijing's latest thinking on the trade war, or any other of a number of ways that Trump is able to move the markets through his tweeting or slips of the tongue? There is definite hanky-panky going on, the world's financial markets' detriment. This is abysmal. So then, talking finally about the last 10 minutes of trading on Friday, August 23, as the markets were roiling in the face of more bad trade news, someone bought 386,000 September E-minis. 3 days later, Trump lied about getting a call from China to restart the trade talks, and the S&P 500 shot up nearly 80 points. The potential profit on the trade was more than $1.5 billion. 27th of May, I said Trump is highly tuned to the markets, and in fact something of a 21st century artiste. His positive trade war tweets are timed around US market hours, designed to soothe, massage and finesse US asset prices, and he turns more negative in Chinese trading hours. This is next level gaming, but there are few leaders I can recall that have appreciated the purity of the market signal and played the game at this Yehudi Menuhin virtuoso level. Of course, I concluded Carl Icahn has stayed real close. CNBC's full interview with Ashton Kutcher and WeWork is an amazing 30 minutes. It's mind-bending stuff. He says, everyone is a creator. We all have superpowers. Panic behind the scenes, China's capital flows are soaring. There is a relatively simple way to keep track of what is really happening with China's fund flows behind the scenes. The relevant figure to track is China's errors and omissions line in its balance of payments. This hit a record first half high of $131 billion in 2019. And then saying capital is already fleeing China. Any future attempts to boost China's economy using monetary policy will be promptly punished, which also explains why the world is sinking into recession. As a reminder, in a world where China has been the primary growth dynamo thanks to its tremendous credit impulse after the financial crisis, this massive credit creation mechanism has now shut down. 7th of October, I said shorting the renminbi is a bit of a no-brainer. 30th of September, I said Xi will have to let the renminbi go, so sell it. They will hold it steady. That was in the week of the anniversary, because the CCP is celebrating 70 years of the People's Republic. But when the party is over, there will be an almighty hangover, I concluded. We're currently at 708.50. 13th of August, I said the most important currency to watch right now is the renminbi. China has exerted the power of pull over a vast swathe of the world over the last 2 decades. We can call it the China-Asia emerging markets and frontier markets feedback loop. This feedback loop has been largely a positive one for the last 2 decades. With the renminbi now in retreat and in a precise response to Trump, this will surely exert serious downside pressure on those countries in the feedback loop. The purest proxy for the China, Asia, EM and frontier markets feedback loop phenomenon is the South African rand. Currency markets, euro dollar 111.25, dollar index 97.60, Japanese yen 108.66, Swiss franc 0.9875, the pound 128.85, the Australian dollar 0.6835, India rupee 71.157, South Korean won 1179.70, the Rial 41625, Egyptian pound 16.229, and the Rand 14.8306. This is a 5-day dollar index chart from FX Pit Titan, who says it's been a slight pullback over the last couple of days, nothing major, the bull trend remains intact. Conversely, David Inglis, dollar indices broke support this week. Is this the beginning of a longer rolling over of the US currency? I don't think so. I think it's a buying opportunity. Euro dollar, this is a 3-month chart, last 111.25. JP Morgan on Netflix, increased confidence. We reiterate our overweight rating and our SOP driven price target remains $425. Goldman Sachs has raised its price target to $400. I put out a conviction buy on Netflix on the 23rd of September at $270.75. I also wrote an article then about streaming dreams, non-linearity, crude oil and Netflix, in which I said the majority of analysts are in the US, and in my opinion these same analysts have an international blind spot. Once investors appreciate that the story is an international one and not a US one anymore, we will see the price ramp to fresh all-time highs. The stalwart, who I follow on Twitter, had a very interesting tweet thread about Bitcoin, which kind of demolishes the very raison d'etre of Bitcoin. He says, every time there's a big criminal bust involving Bitcoin and people's identities are revealed, the hodlers come out and say, we never said it was anonymous. The blockchain is public, everyone can see it. We just claim it's permissionless. The key reason that Bitcoin is now being pitched as digital gold is that it is seen as not a medium of exchange, but rather a store of value. Crucially, the question that must be asked is what value is being stored? Different stores of value store different things. So, for example, farmland is a store of value, not because its dollar value will necessarily remain stable over time, because in the event of calamity or war, a farm is likely to be a source of safety and food. Gold historically has done a decent job of storing purchasing power, so on. The theoretical value that Bitcoin stores is the freedom to transact. If you are deplatformed from the banks, because your views are unpopular, odious, or illegal, nobody in the Bitcoin ecosystem can prevent you from transacting. So if Bitcoin can't offer anonymity to its users when they do at times have to transact, then it's useless, because if you can be identified by the government, then you can be punished and therefore de facto censored. Until true anonymity or near anonymity is developed into Bitcoin, it's still incomplete and not delivering on its promise. So it's a lame defense to say it was never meant to be anonymous. Nonsense. Without anonymity, there's no censorship resistance and no store of value. I think he's making some really important points there. 30th of September, I said Bitcoin could fall as far as $1,000, where it was in January 2017, and still remain in a bull market, in my view. 2 Bitcoin charts to think about. This is from Hodlon Comrades, and this is this type of chart that excites the bulls. We're currently at 7,900. And another one which compares Bitcoin versus the Nasdaq and tulips, that's from Orange Dog 21. Commodity markets, gold was last at 1488.75. It's struggling now. Oil, according to the marketeer, is finally taking out the negative trend since the Saudi attack, and last trading at $54.08. China's wholesale pulp price is now at 42.46 renminbi per kilogram, compared to 21.7 renminbi back in October 2018. That's a 102% increase. That's from Nicoletos. 7th of October, I was saying the pork apocalypse speaks to a very fragile food situation. Let's move on to Africa. The First Lady of Burundi, Denise Bucumi Nkurunziza, is involved in government programs. She's taken on diplomacy, health, doesn't have an official position in the government of her husband. Analysts and observers think that she's being prepared to replace her husband in 2020. Africa's eurobonds are a blank cheque. Eurobond financing is booming even in the least developed emerging markets. African sovereigns issued $26 billion on the market last year alone. You would be hard pressed, however, to find out how the money was used. In many Eurobond prospectuses, you will find that the use of proceeds section consists of a mostly blank page containing one short message. The Republic of ... will use the net proceeds of the issue for general budgetary purposes. That blank page is essentially a blank cheque. Quid pro quo is that investors get handsome returns in exchange for sovereign finance with few strings attached. To wit, look at this, these are the details of the tuna bond scandal, are pretty shocking, involving prostitutes and a $12 million house in the south of France. You can't make it up. Ex-Credit Suisse banker hid $45 million and has named 4 others. This is the article that Paul Wallace was referencing. They all played a role ensuring the bank made the loans, Pierce said. They provided the bank with false information about Privinvest. Credit Suisse loans were for 3 maritime projects, a tuna fishing fleet, a shipyard, a surveillance operation to protect Mozambique's coastline. Prosecutors say Privinvest officials charged Mozambique inflated prices for equipment and services, freeing up money for bribes. It's just incredible. Ndambi Gwibeza, the former president's son, once demanded Bustani pay him an additional 11 million euros. He was living in the south of France and asked to buy a house for himself and a prostitute he'd fallen in love with. When he expressed surprise at Gwibeza's request, Pierce said Bustani only shrugged, saying it's nothing, given the $50 million I've already paid him. 31st of October 2016, I wrote an article, Mozambique from Boom to Bust, a cautionary tale. In that article I said Mozambique could be the next Qatar as we stuffed ourselves with wonderfully flavoursome tiger prawns. But I also said if you're mortgaging the future, you need to make sure you can first afford the mortgage payments, and second, that the investments you're making are going to provide a meaningful return on your investment. And so, certainly an 11 million euro house for your prostitute girlfriend isn't. This is a photograph of Maputo Africa Rising Conference in 2014 that the IMF hosted when everybody was very bullish. Photograph of Maputo from the sea that I took. I wrote about Maputo first in June 2012 when I visited because I knew the gas was going to eventually come on stream. I called the article Maputo Boom Town. Then of course we had the 2016 bust, and now we're coming on the rebound as Exxon and Total and others start to pump money in. This is a photograph I took, Ethnographia, from the Maputo Museum. We stayed at the Palana, about which I wrote and believe is the jewel in the Serena Hotel's crown. So have a read of those articles. South African all shares up 6.18% year to date. Dollar rand 14.83, still in that 14.50 range. Egyptian pound 16.229. EGX 30 up 8.98% year to date. This is a photograph of natural gas flaring site in the Niger Delta via The Guardian. The Nigerian all shares minus 15.83% year to date. Crude oil bunker in Bodo, Niger Delta. It's quite dystopian, isn't it? Mad Max kind of world. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is minus 13.37% year to date. The market is asking for a premium to hold Kenyan debt as compared to similar rated African sovereign bonds. This is from Dixon Magecha of Bloomberg. Treasury yield curve has been steadily moving up in anticipation of the lifting of the rate caps. Next week's auction of 16 years infrastructure bond will give a clear direction. That's Sunil Sankar via Twitter. The prospectus for that GOK tax-free infrastructure bond is linked on rich wrap-ups. Issue size 60 billion, tenor 16 years, coupon to be market determined. The banking sector reacted positively to this news, and huge volumes were traded, 1.7 billion shillings. Equity Bank and KCB and Co-op Bank featured the most. Tough economic times and increased completion of malls, so rental yield fall by a record 10.2%. with occupancy rates in existing properties declining by 4.8% as well. That's in Nairobi. The Nairobi all shares up 5.59% year to date. NSE 20s down 13.32%. But if we see a good recovery in the banking stocks and finally a knocking back of the rate caps, then we've probably seen the low for the year. Thank you and wishing you a great weekend.